All right, good morning, everyone. Let's give charity today. Charity is Makarav, it's a Geula. Tzedakah Makarevis is a Geula. It says, Ein Yisrael Nigolim Elo B'Tzedakah. The Jewish people will only be saved by means of giving charity. Like it says, Tzion B'Mishpat Tefara, B'Shaveh B'Tzedakah. That Israel will be redeemed by justice. But the Jews will be redeemed through charity. So here we go. Let's give charity. Hashem should protect all of our soldiers, and we should have a normal government that ends this war as quickly as possible and brings all of the hostages back and bring all the Jewish people all over the world back from the penitentiary of ignorance. Good. Here we go. Ready? Let's go. So last time we learned that the Jewish people are here in the world in order to accomplish something. And that is to maintain the world and to protect the world. That's what Adam was created for, right? Adam was put into the world, and that world went back then. The world was called heaven on earth. It was called Gan Eden, and he was here to make it even better. And he said, "Avdo l'shamra," to work on it and to protect it. And so, what does that mean? So here, the Rebbe is saying that it means to make unity, to make harmony. That the world is purposely created. God created the world in a way that it requires more harmony to see what there really is. Like we said before, like putting a puzzle together or like cleaning your glasses and just to see what really is. Everything should fit properly because God is creating the world in a way that the world works. We see that the world works, but we have no idea how it's really supposed to work, how much better it's supposed to be. I heard an example once. I don't know if this example is true, but I heard that the Australian government, or if it wasn't Australia, maybe somebody else, anyway, so they decided to benefit the Aborigines over there. There's the Aborigines, the people that live there before the Australians did. So they decided that somehow or other they're going to get them, they're going to teach them agriculture. So they brought tractors down there with the intention of eventually learning how, teaching them how to use the tractors. But the government changed or whatever, so the tractors remained there, and there was no gas in them or anything like that. And these people didn't really, communicate so well with the outside world. Anyway, but it ends up that they were very, they had a certain a type of intelligence, and they knew how to take, so they took apart the tractors, and they were using the pistons, to the motor, like to crush up potatoes or whatever things that they were using, to crush grains to make bread. And it was very efficient, it was very efficient. So in other words, they had a tractor which they could have used to produce, 1,000 times more potatoes and grains than what they had. And that with that money that they made, they could buy all sorts of really grinders or whatever. And in addition to doing all sorts of other things you can do with a tractor. But they only saw one practical use, and that was to find something that was flat, that had a handle. You can crush it. Well, the same thing with us, with the world. The God Hashem is creating the world, but we're not. And not just this world. All the spiritual human beings, they have souls and they have conscience and they have abilities and genius and kindness and love. And all these things, if they're used properly, it makes a whole new wonderful world in quantity and in quality, a whole new quality. But we're not. We're just using a little tiny bit of it, like using, a tractor only for a piston. So that's what's called making peace. Making peace means using everything that there is in order to improve the world. Says the Rebbe, a lot of this is done magically. Magically. What does it mean magically? By us learning, when they learn this was entrusted to the Jews. So when the Jews learn the Torah, and they learn the Torah in a proper way, who's being aware that it's the Torah of God who's creating us, who's infinitely close to us, and who wants us to fix the world up. So when we learn the Torah, as magically God helps and keeps things going, and that's learning the Torah and also doing the commandments. So it says it makes peace in the upper family and in the lower family. And the Rebbe explains that the upper family are the first two letters of God's name, and the lower family, that's the lower two letters of God's name. What's that mean? So the first two letters of God's name, that's the plan of creation. That's what's called God's Chachma and Bina, all these upper worlds. And the lower, that's God's emotions and this world. So it reveals, for instance, God's kindness in the world. And even more, it makes harmony between God's kindness and God's severity. Which a simple way of saying is God's severity is this world, which is very severe and very, how do you say, cruel, the world, and very limited. And it conceals the truth, very misleading, this world. That's gavura, that's concealing, hiding, right? Like putting blinders on a horse or something. It's reducing what reality really is. But that's the world. God created the world. There's laws of nature and things like that. That's the world. And putting kindness into the world, that's blessing, putting blessing into the world so that things succeed and people start to see that it's not really our world, that it's God's world. That's what's called uniting kindness, chesed, with gevura. And that the chesed, the God's kindness, is dominant. So we see everything as a big miracle in the world, and the world is really good. That's what it says, to unite, even though that these are two opposites, God's severity and God's kindness, that you can unify them, Leo, to be smaller as klala, the left side. In other words, God's severe side united with the right. But Rav Chesed, Venota Klape Chesed, and the world, the whole world inclines to the side of love, the side of kindness. So you go to places and you're not afraid to walk in the streets, and that people aren't clamoring for war and etc. V'yesh shalom, there'll be peace. V'yaseh li, this one shalom yaseh li, that makes peace for God, because it's God's world. Lios is kalos amidos, that there should be a unification of God's emotions. Like it says, that God, Gramaya, and all of his creations become one. Gramaya means his bodies, the world. That they become unified with one unity, ad she'en achdus mamash, till it's complete unity. So what's the job of the Jewish people is to reveal the unique holiness, and maybe not holiness is not a good word, but the importance of this world to God. How every detail in this world is infinitely shines God's love. Everything. Huh? And when that happens, the world will be a very, very wonderful, wonderful world. We're bringing in a new partner over here, right? We're realizing that it wasn't our world, it's God's world. It takes the pressure off of us. And we also realize that we're not alone. But most of all, we realize that the world is good. Good. All these other religions are talking about going to heaven and going to heaven and going to heaven. You're going to go to heaven, and heaven, you go to heaven, and you leave this world, you go to heaven, you go to heaven. I mean, heaven is good, but this world is infinitely better when you reveal the truth, why God is creating this world. As it is, the world is pretty bad. I mean, that you don't need a book to tell you that. And that heaven is good, so you need a book to tell you that. But that this world is better, potentially, than heaven, that's what you need the Jews for. That's what you need Chassidut for. To tell you that this world is infinitely infinite. So if you're motivated, people are motivated to go to heaven, they're willing to do anything to go to heaven. So how much more so they should be motivated to make this world better than heaven? That's what's called harmony. Okay, so how do we do it? Let's just like there has to be harmony in all these worlds, these creations, also with us. Each and every one of us has to embody this peace. So you want there to be peace in the world. The way to do it is not by making what is it called? The demonstrations in the streets, or by yelling, getting into politics and all these things. the, the way to fix up the world is that we have to do what we're supposed to do, each person on his own. You have to fix up your little part. The Rebbe spoke about this. This was like last week. It says one of the followers of the third Rebbe of Chabad said that he wanted to go to the land of Israel, and the Rebbe said, "Make here Israel, Machda Eretz Israel." He wants to go to the Holy Land. He said, "Make here the Holy Land." Now they were in Lubavitch, which Lubavitch is definitely not Israel, according to all opinions. Even though the fact of the matter is, I mean, not according to all opinions, the Reform Jews in Germany, when Reform was originated, so they said, we don't need Israel, we don't need Jerusalem. They said that Germany is our Israel and Berlin is our Jerusalem. This was what I was told. I did not read this, and that's why they're the places where they pray or they meet, whatever is called temples. Why they're called temple? Because they said, this is our temple. This is our temple. Now I think they put more emphasis on the land of Israel. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe they're with the Palestinians. I don't know. There's all these Jews that are with Palestinians. Forgive me if I'm wrong, or inform me if I'm wrong. But in any case, except for them, everyone else agrees that Israel is the land of Israel. And not only that, their intention was to show that Israel is not holy anyway. So, any place can be Israel. But what the Rebbe was saying is exactly the opposite, that Israel is holy, and there's nothing more holy than the land of Israel. It's called the Holy Land. But you can make every place holy. Not as holy as Israel, no, right? Nothing is going to play. Moshiach is going to draw all the Jews to Israel. But the reason is because all the Jews are going to have a desire for holiness. They'll know what it means. It'll be valuable to them. So if you value holiness and you value God, then for sure the land of Israel will draw you. There'll be the holy temple will be in Israel. That's the first thing the Mashiach is going to do. Second, Mashiach is going to fight the battles of God, and then he's going to build the holy temple. The holy temple is going to come from heaven, and then all the Jews are going to come to Israel. And if you ask me, the last one of bringing the Jews to Israel is a bigger miracle than the holy temple, which must weigh, I don't know, 300,000 tons or something, who knows, is going to come from heaven. How is it going to come out? That's not logical. Well, I think it's less logical to say that all the Jews are going to want holiness and that they're all going to come of their own free will to the land of Israel. There are Jews that are pretty, headed in the wrong direction. They would rather go to Berlin than this, but it's going to change. It'll change. How do we do that? Here we go. There's also two levels of peace in every Jew. Gam Kain, B'nefesh Adam. We said that there's the first two letters of God's name. That's the higher aspect, intellect, the soul being united. And then there's the lower aspect of the soul being united, the emotions and action in the world. Right? Okay, that was talking about God's intellect and God's emotions in creating the world. Well, the same thing is in each one of us. Each human being is a small world. And from the Jews, it'll spread out to the whole world. Okay, Hine, Hanefesh Yesh Bo Gamkein, the soul of every Jew, and I mean essentially everything in the world, but the soul will start for the Jews first. The Jews are what's called the sons of God. Son of God are the Jews. All those places that are referred in the Torah, it talks about the Son of God, or Isaiah, the Son of God. It's talking about the Jewish people. The Jewish people are called the Son of God. So the Jewish people are uniquely made in the image of God. All mankind is made in the image of God. But the Jews are the ones that are supposed to express it. So here's how you express it. Ready? Let's go. God's name is found also in our soul, or that is our soul. Nefesh, because the soul also has the level, this aspect of the name of God. Like it says, Kishem Hashem Nikra Alecha, the name of God will be called to you. Ki nefesh kolel, because the soul of a Jew is composed of Eser Sfirot, 10 aspects of godliness. 10 aspects. They're called Sfirot. Hine, Chachma and Bina, which we said before corresponds to the letters Yud and Hey of God's name. Chachma and Bina of the soul. So for our purposes, we'll use like the definition that Tanya gives. Chachma is like faith, what's above understanding. And Bina is the beginning of understanding, comprehension, understanding. So Chachma and Bina, there, that is of the soul, is the first two letters of God's name, Yud and Hey. Hine Ita, it says, Chachma Mocha, Bina Liba. There's it's a portion of the Zohar that we say right before Shabbat comes in. And it talks about the Sfirot of God. So it says, Chachma Mocha. Chachma is brain. Bina Liba, and Bina is the heart. Bina is the heart. Heart understands? Yes, it says, Alev Mevin. Your heart understands. There are things that only the heart can understand. That's the difference between Chachma and Bina in our soul. All right, now we want to fix them up. Ready? Let's go. The difference between the brain and the heart. The brain and the heart. Now, the brain, we know that the brain and the heart are organs, right? But the fact is that the brain understands things, and the heart also has an understanding to it. There's things that only the heart can understand. My heart tells me that this is wrong. Maybe we can say that a person's conscience is more revealed in his heart than in his brain. Let's see. Okay, the brain and the heart. Ki, hamoach, the brain, comprehension, understanding, is cold and damp. Shesham makar yesod amayim. That's where water, the lechut, the brain, that's cold, non-emotional. But a person that's an intellectual person, doesn't get excited about anything. Doesn't get excited. He can see something, he'll analyze it. He'll analyze. He can stay objective. But the heart, mishkan yesod aish. But the heart is like fire, right? The heart is warm with what the blood goes through. Also, this aspect of chachma and dat, what's called awareness and connection, intellectual connection to the greatness of God. So how it is that God's greatness is incomprehensible. And everything in front of God is like nothing. Okay, so think about this. Think about this until you approach it with your understanding. Something clicks. Something clicks in your mind. That we're not just talking about the science fiction. This is really real. That God is creating you, but God is incomprehensible. You can't, it's not spiritual. He creates the spiritual. His greatness is like nothing, and everything in front of God is something like nothing. In other words, God is creating everything miraculously, everything from nothing. Everything depends on God. Okay, think about this. God is creating you. He's your creator. That's where you're coming from. Think about it. When you start to think about this in your brain, behold, then what happens? You feel surrendered to God. You surrender yourself totally in the face of God's will. Okay, so why is it that people hurt each other, do bad things? Why? Because they feel they're alone. Why not? Why shouldn't they do? Right? If there's no judge and there's no police, so there can be big signs all over the place. Don't speed, please drive on the right side of the road. So there are people that'll listen to that, and there are people that won't, because there's no repercussions to anything. Well, the same thing is a person, when he thinks that he's alone, that he's the only existence in the world, or he's the most, how do you say, real thing in the world. There's even these groups today, philosophers, that say everything is subjective, everything is in your mind. It's all my mind, my mind, right? Where does my mind come from? I don't know. Anyway, as soon as a person starts thinking that, one second, me and my mind and the whole world are being created. This is faith. This is chachma. It's not a thing you can understand. You can't get an instrument to measure this or to detect it or to prove it. But when you start to think, maybe it's really true. Maybe this is a thing which is above detection. It's above understanding. It's above. That's what's called chachma. Chachma means you see the truth. What's the truth? I'm being created. The whole world is being created. What's it being created from? It's being created from energy. No, energy is also being created. Spirit also being created. So what's it being created? It's being created from nothing. We have no idea what nothing is because up to now we thought that we were God, and all of a sudden we're finding we're nothing. That's a pretty big jump. I thought I was everything, and all of a sudden I'm nothing. This is when a person starts to think about really what God is, and that God is really creating me. Then there's what's called bittul. Up to now I thought I was God. I thought I was reality. Suddenly I realized that I am nothing. What does it mean I'm nothing? I'm a big miracle. God is creating me every moment brand new from nothing. That's say, okay, so that's good. So he's creating me. So what am I supposed to do? Anything I want. God is creating me so I can do it. No, 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 no. God gave the Torah. God, that same God is creating, gave the Torah, and the Torah tells you there's things you cannot do. You're not supposed to do. God, your creator, is telling you not to do things, and there's things you must do. Let's even take a non-Jew, right? And the 7 Noahide commandments are only negative things. They're only prohibitions. Don't kill, don't steal, don't do it. But there's other opinions that there's 30 positive things, things that God wants you to do. So you have to love God. You have to love your parents, according to some opinions. Right? Other opinions say you're supposed to get married, have children. Peru, it's relevant to the non-Jews. Whatever it is, but there's things that you're supposed to do that maybe you don't want to do, and there's things that you're forbidden to do that you do want to do. So giving your will over to your creator, that's called bittul. Bittul or ratzon, you give over your will, you surrender yourself totally to God's will. Well, and therefore this level is called the yud of God's name. Yud is the level of tzimtzum. It's small, the smallest letter. Kamashal, like we said before, when we're talking about how God in creating the world has this level of yud. Now we're talking about in our soul. The letter yud is the smallest letter. It's just a little point. This in us is shebatal ratzono, the letter yud, that we surrender ourselves to God. We surrender. What does it mean, surrender yourselves? Whatever you want me to do, I'll do. Whatever you say is forbidden, I won't do. I surrender myself. Again, levata latatzmo machshava, also to surrender yourself in thought, speech, and action. Let's say maybe a better word than batal, that's to surrender yourself. That's also a good word, but to harmonize yourself. Harmonize yourself, right? You're playing in an orchestra, and they're playing, Mahler's Fifth Symphony or something like that. Well, you can't decide I want to play Beethoven's, Ninth Symphony. You can't do that. So what do you mean I can't do it? I can do whatever I want, right? And especially if nobody's going to stop you. So why not do it? But it won't be beautiful. It won't be nice. It won't be what the composer intended. So what? It's what I intend. Because as soon as you realize that there's such a thing as harmony, to be harmonious with God, and then you want to do what God wants. You'll surrender yourself. The music is bigger than you, right? The reason that you have a trumpet is because there are composers who compose music. There's music. You have to surrender yourself to the music. Or get into be a soloist, or be in jazz. Maybe you can express yourself more in jazz, but you can't. And this world is not a jazz piece, and it's certainly not solo. If it is solo, it's God's solo. It's not your solo. So it says, therefore, when you realize what God is, you start to think, God is creating me. I'm just a creation of God. Doesn't make any sense. Why is He creating me? So He's creating you from love, but it's incomprehensible. You can't understand it. There's no example in this world of nothing. There's no example of this world of creation. Nothing. There can't be anything created from nothing in this world. There's no such thing, right? The scientists, they can't. What do you with nothing? You can't measure nothing. You can't put nothing into a formula. But when you realize that it's true, that really everything is depending on God's will, so you surrender your thought, speech, and action, or let's say, like I said, harmonize your thought, speech, and action. You don't think or speak like you want to. There comes humility. That's what's called humility. Humility means everything I have, I owe to someone else. I'm humble to the king. I don't do what I want. I'm not the boss. Therefore, Nehemar, it says about Moshe, Moses was the most humble person in the world. Anav me'od, because he was the level of chachma, total surrender to God. Gam b'chinas yira, it's also called the fear of God, the upper fear of God. This is also drawn from the moach chachma. You realize that you're nothing. Like it says, Reishis chachma yiras Hashem. The beginning of fear is the beginning of wisdom is the fear of God. Well, fear of God. So maybe we can take this a little bit in what does it mean, fear God? Why is fearing God good? So if you think everything in the world that's done successfully, it depends on fear, a healthy fear. Let's take the example of music. We said music, right? So a person that plays music, if he's a musician, so he is, how do you say, naturally afraid of dissonance. He doesn't like it. Why are you making music? Because I want it to sound nice. There was a while, and maybe it's still going on, that they wanted to make music dissonant in the world. There was a guy, what was his name? I don't know, Cage or somebody like that. And he made music that purposely, it didn't sound good. Okay, who wants to listen to something like that? Except for the person who's making it, he enjoyed it. But so it's fear. Fear means that there is right and wrong, and I don't want to do wrong. That's called fear. But you're driving your car, everyone who drives his car is motivated primarily by fear. You're driving on the right side of the street. Here you have thousands of people driving 60 miles an hour, and right on the other side, just a little bit, all you have to do is turn. There's people driving the opposite direction, right? But nevertheless, automatically, nobody thinks about it. Automatically, you drive in the right place because nobody wants to. You don't want to die. It's an automatic thing. You're not thinking about it all the time. You have to control yourself. No, I want it. Well, it's the same thing. As soon as you realize that there is right and wrong, you realize that there's a creator and the creator is creating me, then that's called bittul. Who am I to go against the creator? That's Moses. It says Moses, to the degree that the creator actually spoke through Moshe. Like it says, Reishish Chachma Yiras Hashem. Also, Chachma Yisur Oretz. And it says, Chachma is the foundation of the physical world. The highest level comes to the lowest level. Abba Yisur Brata. That's called Isha Yiras Hashem. It's called the woman, which is the receiver. Mother Earth is the fear of God. So the lowest really reflects this miraculous essence of God, which is above understanding. That's the Yud. And therefore, Ha'atzmos, therefore the essence of God, I'm sorry, no. Therefore, Ha'atzmos, therefore your bones come from the brain. It says that the Inyan Ha'atzmos, the idea of the brain, all the white parts, it says, are all similar in a person. The brain is white and the bones are white, because the bones, they have also chozek gadol. They're very, very strong. They stand firmly. That's bittul ratzon. A person that's really surrendered to God, surrendered to the Creator, as nothing is going to move him. He knows what's right and wrong, and he's not doing anything because he wants to. He's doing it because the Creator wants to. What do you want to do? I want to do what the Creator wants. So the Creator is eternal. As soon as you realize, that's called bittul. Who with great power, with great assertiveness. God's creating the world, and I'm connecting to Him. I'm doing what He wants. Thinking about the greatness of God. So it's like a pipe. Let's say you connect it to the water source, as if the pipe is clogged up or something, so it doesn't come through. But if the pipe is open, then there's tremendous power of water comes through. The same thing is every human being. Once a person is really connected, his thought, speech, and action, to the awareness that there is a Creator that's creating me, which is above understanding. So it's a tremendous life and happiness that comes through that, because you're connecting to a higher level of reality than yourself. But nevertheless, because Hamoach has water, we said that the brain was not emotional, it's cold. Therefore, intellect is cold. Once a person intellectually understands what the truth is that nothing will move him. The problem is what is the truth? That's the problem. What is the truth? So how can you arrive at the truth? So to some degree, it says you can follow your conscience. That'll be the conscience can also be a mistake. But that's why God gave the Torah to tell us what the truth. And once a person learns the Torah, then automatically, or at least intellectually, he knows what the truth is. And that automatically fixes him up, maybe 2% or something. And then he has to embody it. And once he really embodies the Torah, the ideas of the Torah, and the ideas that God is giving the Torah, and he cares about what we do, then that automatically fixes you up another 20%. But the rest you have to do on your own. There's no such thing as 100%. But at least intellectually or basically, you know that there's a Creator, that you are a miracle product of God's love, that He's creating you all the time. And therefore, you want to do what the Creator wants. You're totally surrendered to the Creator. That's the brain. It's cold, but it's connected. It's cold, but it's connected. It's connection to God, a cold intellectual comprehension. Comprehension, what is of there's a Creator, He's creating me, and I am nothing. And if that God creates me, I'm just infinitely grateful to Him. I surrender myself. That's Chachma. And that was Moses. Moses was totally devoted to the oneness of God, and therefore he could be a conduit for God's wisdom and the Torah. That's the brain. But the heart, Sham, Yesoda Eish, there's the foundation of fire, Betzimaon, and thirst, Bizgalos Ahava, that you want to reveal your love, Berish Pei Eish, in a flaming fire, Mamish, Mikirav Ish Valev Amok. V'zeo Nimshach, this is drawn from Bina. V'hu b'chenes Hey, this is the Hey of God's name in your soul. So the Hey is already excitement. What I can do. Sheyeshlo hispashtus la'orach, the letter Hey, not like the letter Yud. The letter Yud is just like a little point. Where do we got a little Yud over here? See the letter Yud? Just a little point. The letter Hey is spread out already. It's long, it's wide, and it comes down. It's longer, it has a shape. That's the part of your personality which is not surrendered to God. That's a result of your surrender to God. That's the letter Hey. Sheyesh lo hispashtus la'orach barochev, hispashtus amidos of love, spreading out. So the letter Yud is, let's say, taking the example, a letter Yud is a person hears music the first time. What is that? What is amazing? Just that he's knocked out, right? If the person has a sense of music, he's knocked out. He hears this. This is just amazing. This is beautiful. Look, it changes. There's different notes. There's different harmonies. He's just out of his mind, totally surrendered to the music. He wants to buy all the albums of music that he can, just sit and listen all day long. Just sit and listen to the music. Can't believe it. That's like, we're taking a very mundane example, but that's like Chachma. He's totally surrendered to the music. Totally surrendered. What's Bina? Bina is, I want to make some also. I want to do this also. I want to I want to be an active partner. Says that's the level of hey in your soul. That's what's called Bina. The Yud is you're surrendered to God. Like the person who hears music the first time, you feel God the first time, you're surrendered. The letter hey, though, is getting excited. Yeah. But that's the heart. The heart, that's fire. This is love, like flaming fire within the soul of every person. This comes from Bina. This comes from understanding. The Hubichin is hey. This is the letter hey. Sheyeshlo is pashtos, that it is it is a shape. It's long, it's wide. That's what's called the emotions, the seat of the emotions, love, etc. Zeu Bina. I'm sorry. Zeu Konen Shamayim v'Tavuna. It says that God fixed up the heavens with his understanding. Shamayim b'chinas eish. Shamayim is it says the word Shamayim is fire and water. Eish, the shin represents Eish. Eish nimshach b'chinas Tavuna. This is from understanding. Understanding is already more how it's relevant to me. Yud is how I am relevant to God. God is creating me, surrendering myself to God. God is everything, I'm nothing. That's the letter Yud. Bina is that the fact that God is everything and that I'm nothing. Wow, that's really exciting. That's really exciting. It is drawn down, from this is drawn down, Vayigba liba b'darkei Hashem, that your heart gets excited, inspired. V'yislacha b'rachava, and you go in a wide way. I'm sorry, from the heart, I'm sorry, I have to make this bigger look. From the heart comes the flesh. It says from the brain comes the bones. And the heart, that's red, the red, that's like the flesh, muscles. King David said, my heart and my flesh sing to you, God. So the heart, that's already expression, that's excitement, that's fire. Sorry. Hine be'emes really tzorech liyosh in madregas. There has to be these two things of brain and heart. The milas ha'eish, because the quality of fire which is in it, mevash shabo mevash li madavar, that fire can like change and cook things. And it becomes, things become changed by means of fire. Excuse me. To another existence, which is not the case. Without fire, everything remains on its own. Also by means of fire, there could be transforming of your emotions, your personality, of your natural soul. Fire. And there also has to be an elevation of your heart. So the brain alone, you're yourself. I'm nothing. I'm surrendered to God, and that's it. That's all there is. I'm just a creation of God, and I come from nothing. But the heart, that's already, well, what do I do with this fact? The fact is, I'm really not nothing. I mean, God doesn't want me to be nothing. He's creating me. And that gets pretty exciting. You start to think about, well, I have emotions. I'm not, this is not, sitting up on a mountain somewhere. Judaism is dynamic. God is dynamic. God is in the world. Well, I'm sorry for the. Okay, so you can look at God in a philosophical way and say, God is creating everything, God is above everything, God is enlivening everything, and that neutralizes you. That neutralizes you. That makes you, I say, to be as nothing as possible. Right? I am nothing. Everything I have is God. God, you are everything. God, you are creating me. God, you are my life. You are my being. You are my this. No, and so what? That's it. That's it. There's nothing except for God. That's all. That's the brain. That's a good thing. That's the aspect of Moses. But it's only the beginning. That's the basis. After that comes fire. Fire means you do things. You get excited. God is creating me for a purpose, not just to be negated to him. That's what it means. Yigba libo. Your heart becomes excited for God. Happiness, joy, expression, emotions. But milas a moach, but the quality of surrender to God, we said the moach is greater. Shemimena, that from it is drawn chosek v'kiyam of bittul, that from this is drawn a true connection to God. Bittul haratzon b'maisa v'dibur u'machshava. Is that right? B'maisa v'dibur u no, huh? The maybe mitzvah ta'aseh could be. No, that's not right. Well, I don't know what this abbreviation is. I have to think about this bit. The bittul haratzon. I'm tempted to say machshava dibur, and maisa. What this ayin is, I don't know. Okay, I'll think about this. Anyway, surrendering yourself to God. That's good. That's great. Liod nimshach b'pol mamish hu davka alidei koach hamoach. The brain. That's chachma. V'hu kachachma yesod oretz. That's what it means. That chachma founds the earth. This is another. This is humility. Okay, so the main thing is surrender to the truth. Yud is the truth. You're plugged into the truth. You're surrendered to the truth, and this gives you tremendous power. Let's return again to Daniel in the lion's den, right? Daniel, why was Daniel in the lions? The lions didn't hurt him. It says in the Tanya, why? Because he was totally surrendered to God, and he realized that lions are also totally surrendered to God. Everything is a creation of God. And the nature of lions is to eat animals and anything, but the nature of lions is not to eat man. That's not their nature. If a man acts like a man, if a man acts like an animal, then not. What's the difference between a man and an animal? Then an animal just feels itself. It's nature, and a man can feel the creator. That's the letter Yud. Because Daniel was feeling the creator all the time, surrendered, so that animals couldn't eat him. They were surrendered themselves. They were connected to their source. So the main essence, novelty of Judaism is connection to the creator, that really the whole world is really absolutely nothing. That's the foundation. And when that happens, then that gives you a tremendous power, a tremendous certainty. Which is not the case of the letter Hey. The letter Hey is getting excited, right? That's already getting close to egotism. Right there, you got a little danger of being separated from God. Says the Rebbe, nevertheless, both of them are necessary. There's two opposites. There's water, that's intellect, and Aish, that's the heart, the emotions. Therefore, there has to be peace between them. Peace. And that's this whole thing that Midian is the opposite of peace. That's the whole point. That there should be two partners, two friends, lovers. That's what in of shalom. That's what it means, making peace in the upper family, in your soul, in yourself. Namely, that your brain rules over your heart. Like we said before, your heart is already getting you into trouble. It can be egotistical. But on the other hand, that's you. It's a good thing to be excited. So your brain has to rule over your heart. What does it mean, your brain? your brain is connected to the truth, and your heart gets excited about everything. So you have to make sure that your heart gets excited about the truth. Me'alev, from the heart, says, so from your heart is drawn, I'm sorry, the brain has to rule over the heart. Ki me'alev nimshach bechinas rotzoy, because from the heart is drawn desire, running to things. But afterwards, shuv, you have to come back to godliness. Ha'ikr, the main thing is yigba libo, bagam inya ligba libo talmidei chachamim tzorich liot also shmidis shebeshmidis. It says that people who are the talmidei chachamim, the people who are totally surrendered to God, but they have to have a little bit of egotism. And if they don't, then they can't carry out what they want in the world. They'll always be recluses, removing themselves. So this is going on each and every one of us. Let's let's take it out of the book for 1 second. Number one, you have to think and contemplate. Is there really a creator or not? Is he creating me or not? If I'm being created, then what am I? If my whole being is being created, then what am I? I'm a creation of God. I depend totally on God. And when you start to realize that it's really true, that's the aspect of Chachma wakes up in your brain. And when you start to get excited about this and say, well, what do I do? I want to do something. I want to repay my creator. I want to, you get excited. That's the level of Bina. But Bina already can be misled. It can be misled much more easily than Chachma. So therefore, there has to be both together. You have to be, it says that your heart, your excitement has to be ruled by the truth that your mind sees. And on the other hand, it has to be that the truth that your mind sees has to bring to action. You have to get excited about it. That's what it says. 1/64th of your surrender to God has to be yourself, your own ego. What should I do? In Cain, if so, ha'anava, therefore, humility has to be more and more than the level of elevating your heart to God. Like King David, here we see King David, that he had all these wives and he was the king of Israel and he was tremendously successful and he won all these battles. But his main thing was he was totally surrendered to God. Totally. Someone said about that they went into, who was it? I don't remember the person's name. He said that he spoke to the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and that this person was also like, he was a rabbi, but also a professor. So he said he says he knows everything about the Torah. I've never seen a mind like that. He just knows everything about the Torah, and also in science. In science and just amazing, broad, deep knowledge of science. A mind like that I've never seen. He said, but when we're talking about God, he talks just like my grandmother. He's just like a simple child. So what is the main element? The most impressive element of King David is that he won all these battles and that he wrote the Psalms and that he was a king and that he ruled. So that's the most impressive. That's outside, but that's not the main element of his personality. The main element of his personality was his total surrender to the Creator. Humility. Therefore, humility has to be much, much more than your expression in the world. That's what it says when you pray, that you have to bend down. When you say modim, you have to be surrendered to God and to yireh iser keneged libo. And I think this is where we're going to stop. An iser. An iser is a coin, we'll see. When you bow, you're supposed to bow down when you say modim anachtu lach, when you pray, that it says you're supposed to see some people say a fold. In other words, you're not supposed to bow down a little bit. You're supposed to bow down until that you feel that it affects your stomach, right? Your whole posture moves over. You bend over so that there's a bend in the stomach. It says you have to. You have to be surrendered to God to that degree. What does it mean? How does this express anything about surrender to God? We'll talk about that, God willing, tomorrow.